feels like it has been forever since I've done a rundown. A lot has
He's
obviously
back.
gone on with patches and other stuff. And
He's
this is
back.
the
Let's
video
go.
that I'm going to release. I'm probably going to release a video in the next few days that talks about where I've been for the past month and just other stuff. But I figured I would get up and I would do this patch rundown because I thought to myself, if I don't do this one, I'm probably just... It really feels like if I don't do this patch rundown, I am just going to indefinitely keep just saying I'll do the next one over and over and over.
Aw.
And so...
Oh, it's quiet? Here, I got you guys.
For the 12:15 rundown. And
Better?
I don't know what to think. I've recently started watching more of
This is good.
random tournament games in various regions, and so I have a general idea of like what is going on, but obviously I've been detached in some ways. However, when I see the nerfs and the buffs, I do
Okay,
immediately
this is
think
good.
like something is going on here. Something is
All
not
right.
quite right. One of the things I am happy to see is obviously Sivir. When she was originally reworked, I remember just thinking like, okay, I think that this is all just in a really, really, really good direction. I do think that over the last couple of patches, not too much has actually been changing. It's no surprise to see Gwen obviously back here again, but for the most part, stuff has sort of begun to get stale again, at least in major regions.
Hold on.
There was that announcement that came
Give
out
him a
with
like,
like the
real quick.
LDL is doing the... I forget
Guys,
what
if
they
you don't
call
like
it, the type
the
draft,
YouTube videos that you
the thing
watch,
me and
then
Pedro
like,
ended
what's
up
your
doing
issue,
on
man?
stream once
You guys not know how
But
much like,
let's get into
dude,
it. So
likes
nerf,
help the
Kali,
creator out so
energy
much, by the way.
restoration and maximum energy bonus increase.
You'd be surprised.
Does need it. Kali is not in the best of states right now. You're actually griefing in most instances where you would pick a Kali, mostly because
I
of how
disagree.
heavy of a champion she is in terms of how much gold allocation she needs.
I think she's
How
good.
long she needs to get online. The fact
takes
that
a while to
she's
get online.
Outright countered by so many different types of themes.
This is
in team
true.
Composition. She just doesn't have the same.
But
kind of
she's still
power that
good.
She once did, and then with
She's good in solo
other
queue.
recent changes that have happened.
In competitive, she's not good. She's decent in solo queue. I mean, I play her a decent amounts. She can be good. She can be really good. It's just, it's like why. It's more so like why would you want to pick an AP assassin right now? That's all.
Happened lately. She's just in a weird spot. So this is definitely very good for Akali. Gwen, Q true damage conversion decrease.
Yeah, I know he talks
Surprise
about
here.
pro play mainly.
Q snip,
So
true damage and center.
just making that
75%
clear.
to 50% of all damage dealt is converted to true damage. This is totally fine. Gwen, I mean, they said it right here. Gwen's changes in 12:13 achieved our goals of making it easier for players to lane with her and execute her combos, but they were a bit too effective at the highest levels of play. Wow, who could have guessed? And again, this was primarily just because of the way that Gwen wins her matchups.
Yeah, how did they
anyway.
buff her?
It's
I
not
forget.
that
It's
effective
a patch ago.
to do the type of changes that they did if you're talking about like pro level play because of the way that champions actually are allowed to itemize against Gwen. Now the 75% to 50% of the damage is dealt to true damage. I mean, this is sizable. I do think that this does bring her down a little bit of a peg, but Gwen, if she's a response or a reactive champion to a team composition, or if people just keep picking like these mid-rangey meat, just bump ugly type team compositions, then Gwen is still just going to be good the same way that Viego was really good for a really, really long time because of the way that people were drafting and stuff. And if the drafts across any region right now are indicative of if Gwen will remain good in certain situations, she's probably still going to be fine. Callista, base attack damage decreased. This champion is atrocious on
3
so many
AD?
levels, has been for a really long time. It is a tragedy that people convince themselves that this champion is somehow good. Honestly, I mean, she's the Renekton of AD carry in a lot of ways. People will have like these euphoric,
Dude,
just app.
I swear the only time I ever see Callista work is Callista Renata. I don't think it has anything to do with Callista, personally. I also agree with what he's saying. This champion is fucking awful. It always has been. It gets countered by everything. It gets countered by just champions that auto attack.
Absolutely bizarre.
This champ isn't good. It never has been.
memories
It's
of
only
her, like,
semi-strong because of
top
Renata
off
W.
bullies in lane,
And Renata
because
passive too,
literally her whole
synergizing
thing
with her
is
passive.
predicated off of the idea
That's
that
it.
your opponents are worse than you and you just get really far ahead. Now, obviously, she does come with a little bit of utility inside of her kit that offers like some form of engage, but again, she's one-dimensional. She's very, very forced into that avenue because she doesn't have that old late game theme hyper scaling
Yup.
type thingy that she did once upon a time, a long time ago. That was a
The
very
only
different
time
version of
the only
Callista.
time she's good in late game
Dragons
is
were
if
very
she's a
different
fucking
back then.
tank.
Her rend, her neutral, objective control and things of that nature were very different. The 3AD, honestly, I mean, it hurts her a little bit more than it hurts some other 80 carries just because of the way that her kit works and the way that she has to do those early trades and everything like that. Losing damage early on does hurt her. But I mean, this is one of those buffs that I know that you would hear me talk about on a lot of other champions, and I would say that it's probably not a super big deal. And I understand what this ends up doing is a lot of people, I remember reading Reddit threads, and I would read Twitter comments sometimes when like Lucian would, lose AD, or other various ADs would lose AD. And someone would say that it's just so much damage being added into the game. What's happening is that the end game post graph screen, yes, you're actually losing lots of damage off that bar. But all that really matters in the analysis of it is what does this damage reduction to her base attack damage convert to in a trade? What does it convert to in a lane phase? What does it convert to in a team fight? And when you start talking about those numbers, that is very negligible, all things considered. So yes, the post-game graph, when you click damage dealt to enemy champions, while that bar will be moved, because again, you're taking a compilation of dozens of fights that occurred throughout the game, then yes, then when you throw it together, it will look very large. But in an actual fight, it's going to be specks of dust. It's not going to be super converting. Now, Callista, again, yes, early game a little bit weaker, so in that regard, it's fine. Kennen, W cooldown decreased early, magic damage increased, R ability power scaling increased, W electrical surge, 14 to 6 seconds to 13 to 6 seconds. That's very nice. Magic damage is going to go from 60 to 100 to 70 to 170. R slicing maelstrom, magic damage per bolt, 40 to 110 plus 20% AP to 40 to 110 plus 22.5% AP. So Kennen's kind of weird. If you go the glass cannon and you do get the dream setup, then yeah, Kennen is going to have an absolutely great time.
Oh, it's actually like a
do that
pretty,
with like
pretty
Rabadon's
big buff.
Death Cap, and you have Void Staff, you have everything else. The problem is
Pretty
that
big
Kennen
buff,
has
actually.
utility variations of his build, where typically Kennen will do something like build Rocket Belt, and then after building Rocket Belt, what he'll do is he'll build Zanya's Hourglass, and you're talking about a 2.5% AP increase. Now, I understand that it is per bolt and whatnot. Kennen is getting extra damage here, and W with the Electric Surge getting extra damage there as well is definitely really good for Kennen. Kennen does like and need these kind of things in order to get back basically into being into the meta. I don't think that these type of changes are going to make Kennen like flexible or anything. He's still going to be predominantly up there in top lane. I do hope that he doesn't just come back blanket or like blind as a lane bully or something of that nature. I think that wouldn't make any sense, nor do I think that these changes are enough to push him over the edge. But this will make him a lot better in the mid-game team fights, and then obviously late game depending on team comps. Lee Sin. QW and E reactivation energy cost decreased. Okay, as a system energy, it's intended to give some champions spikes of power that fall off with the combat time, given the current...
I feel like these energy changes don't really do much, at least for Lee Sin. Like, these are all quality of life, no? Like, all the energy changes, they don't actually, like, hard buff the champs. I mean, same thing, like, Akali, Zed, Shen, whatever, right? I don't think the energy changes help in any way. Like, I really... When I first saw the Akali changes, I couldn't help but to think to myself... The only instance where you're probably going to notice the 20 energy increase that you get from your W is when you're trading at like level 2, level 3. You know? I don't know. I just personally don't think you're going to notice it too much. I think they're just placebo. They're quality of life.
To find success because their energy depletes.
You might feel the buffs in some scenarios, but for the majority of your games, you probably won't realize anything changed.
Safeguard Iron Will 30 to 25. E Tempest Cripple is also down by 5. So Lee Sin's getting access to quicker lethal thresholds and activate.
I don't think the problems with any energy champ is the lack of energy they have.
Again, another champion that really shouldn't be picked, but he often does get picked. And then it's very difficult to have a conversation with someone, honestly, about his kick or, other types of value that he has at different stages of the game, because realistically it just shouldn't be real, because again, much like Callista, it's predicated off assuming that your opponent is incapacitated. And that is just a really weird thing. Now, obviously, you do get highlights and you get those, you know, absolutely PogChamp plays and all these other things. But then on the flip side, in more cases than not, that often actually doesn't end up being the case. Or in the cases where teams are picking Lee Sin, it's often the better team is picking him and the other team ends up winning because of things that don't contribute to Lee Sin. Now, these changes are good for him. There's so many other better junglers right now, and it just should not matter about these changes. Leona, Q mana cost decreased at all ranks. Our crowd control duration increased. This is really good for Leona, but the problem is that she lost a lot of her damage. And it feels like, what is the reason to pick Leona almost at this point over something like Sejuani's support, unironically? And it doesn't really make that
unironically.
much sense. I mean, the mana cost going down on Shoulder Daybreak, Leona does not have mana problems.
We should have added an unironically
totally,
counter to
like,
my stream.
Totally missing. Like, what is this? Now, I will say that for, like, if you guys have watched the Korean Grandmaster player that plays Leona top lane or something, yeah, this is really good for Leona top lane. The mana cost on Q, yeah, she does spam that a lot in lane. She's actually getting enormous amounts of mana in laning phase in top lane. Just getting 10 off the Q, I mean, it doesn't do anything for Leona. It doesn't really do that much, especially with the way that tenacity works inside of the game and all this other great stuff.
Like, you know for a fact, if that was a pro match, we'd be chrono breaking that instantly. I would pause, cuss out the ref real fast, you know, and then like chrono break. That's it.
Just very odd placebo buff. Well, I'm
joking. I wouldn't cuss out the ref.
I mean, if Riot continues to buffer in the future, then these things do eventually add up. But given the current state of Leona,
that's a chrono break and a half in a pro game.
Passive damage cap against monsters increase. Passive Dream Laden Bow. So the monster cap damage 40 to 100 to 50 to 150. So getting the extra damage in the later stages will help her clear. And
I guess that helps a lot later
on. A bit weak in the jungle at all skill brackets. Lilia is not a solo queue champion for a lot of reasons. The way that she needs to play inside of the jungle, the way that she coordinates ganks requires the Lilia player to be really good, as well as for the other player to understand what Lilia is trying to do. And then the setup with her E and her R and the sleeps and everything in the later stages of the game are also something that you're just not expecting that someone would have coordination for. Why would you end up playing Lilia and going through the hassle of doing all of that when you could alternatively just play Fiddlesticks, nuke people instead of having to set up with ENR, or alternatively just play Karthus, clear really, really, really fast, and then nuke people and get a lot of gold every single time that you do it? It just doesn't make that much sense. Now, in competitive, I will say that there can be sense for Lilia, and I don't deny that, but in solo queue, it doesn't make sense. Mastery E cooldown no longer decreases with rank, so it's going to be 18 seconds at all ranks. This is just another hit to Mastery E. I think that Riot has just like decided they really do not want him in competitive or anything. They keep just tuning him for lower.
I mean, they decided that on his creation.
Kiana, passive bonus attack damage scaling decreased, first strike bug removed. Kiana is very interesting because of the way that she works and the way that she functions with all the changes that have actually happened, as well as the way that she's allowed to itemize. So, passive Royal Privilege is going to be 15 to 83, levels 1 to 18, plus 45% bonus AD. The AP doesn't really matter. Still going to be 15 to 83, and levels 1 to 18, plus 30% bonus AD. So, she's losing 15% of her bonus AD. And then the bug fixes. Fix a bug where Kiana could apply an extra proc of her passive with first strike equipped. So that's obviously a very big bug fix. Kiana's still going to be fine inside of a solo queue environment. Competitive, it is going to be a little bit harder still to make her function just due to the nature.
She's not even that good in competitive.
And everything,
never really has been.
Aside from that, I think
except for on release,
she's probably going to be fine. Ramus, R cooldown adjusted. Base cast range increased. Dash range growth increased. Minimum and maximum dash speed decreased. So Ramus is actually really funny. With the 12.14 changes to tank items, Ramus hasn't been rolling around with the enthusiasm he once had. We're opting to return some power to his kit with a few quality of life adjustments to his ultimate, which Ramus would respond to by saying, okay, that is actually true. Riot did make a correct statement. R, Soaring Slam. So cooldown is going to go down to 90 seconds at all ranks. I mean, having the R up does not actually decide most of Ramus's ganks. So getting 20 seconds shaved off it, and then at rank
I never really see Ramus
5 seconds shaved off it, so it isn't really doing anything. And then it's actually a nerf for late game. I mean, it seems like Riot actually is even aware that this is not a thing that does anything for Ramus. I mean, again, having it up 20 seconds sooner, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't create a gank or anything. The base cast range, however, being up by 200, that's really big. And then the dash range growth 1.3 to 1.5, that's really big as well. Minimum dash speed 700 to 900. Maximum dash speed is also going to go up. So this is totally fine for Rammus. I think that Rammus is a champion that really flourishes when the enemy just picks bad comps into Rammus, but people don't want to play Rammus because he's a little bit slower and things of that nature. But Rammus does have some really broken builds that he can end up going. He's a great utilizer of like Demonic Embrace, really great utilizer of Thornmail and everything, really great utilizer of just a lot of like the very wonky items. And I think that he has very interesting builds and things of that nature. So it'll be interesting if Riot will continue to revisit Rammus. I don't anticipate that they will, but I mean, I think that he has or was viable actually for a while, at least in competitive. Shen, E passive energy refund increased later. E Shadow Dash. Energy refunded upon dealing damage passive or E is going to go up.
Mandretta, thank you for the 5 months.
Again, this isn't what's stopping Shen from being able to come back. Shen doesn't really have energy problems. It feels like if you have energy problems on Shen, then you're doing something wrong in most cases. His energy problems are if you miss. I mean, that's really what it is. So this is basically
legit combo.
Like
thank you for the prime as well, man.
Button to some of the players that are just playing really poorly on him.
And Dub Joe, thank you for the prime too.
Have energy problems.
Dusty Ash, thank you for the 3 months. Marshmallow, thank you for the 6 as well. Thank you guys so much.
Per target cooldown decreased, our bonus stats increased early. Passive, Noxious Slipstream. Bonus movement speed is going to go up by 5%. And then per target cooldown, 10 seconds to 8 seconds. Our Insanity Potion bonus stats are also going up. He's getting 10 at rank 1, which is absolutely bonkers.
His rank 6 is good then,
really
or is
like
level 6?
Who are doing the best right now, I believe, in LCK. And I mean, they have been looking really well. So obviously, Lahen's there with the Singed. It is quite a funny thing. But it would be very odd if Singed's best role is actually support. But
little sad apple, thank you for the prime.
Good for both top and support Singed. Sivir, attack damage growth decreased. E cooldown increased at all ranks. R cooldown increased at all ranks. So this is really big. Attack damage growth is down by 0.3.
Dude, I never have like
more AD in the later stages of the game. Yeah. And E spell shield cooldown is 22 to 14 to 24 to 18. So that is actually a lot of CDR stripped away from it in even the later stages of the game. And then R on the hunt, 100 to 70 to 120 to 80, so she can't just like almost cast it almost every single time that it's up. These are very moderate nerfs, I think, all things considered. I don't think that this changes why you're picking Sivir or what is going to prevent you from picking Sivir or anything like that. There was some change that I'm not remembering off the top of my head, but I remember there was some sort of a change where the number was already really high on the big ability, and it was something down in bot lane. It was very similar to this, and people basically crucified the champion and said that it would never be picked again because of the added like 2 or 3 seconds that Riot gave to the ability. I can't think of the champion off the top of my head, but I know that it happened, and I just wonder if people are going to overreact to this the same way that they did that champion once upon a time, but realistically they shouldn't. Talia, E cooldown increased at all ranks. Our wall duration decreased. Talia's Unraveled Earth is a great tool for stalling teamfights and creating a danger zone to scare off opponents. However, it's currently creating a bit too much time for herself and her allies. We're taking down our ability to cast it quite as frequently. Okay, so the cooldown 16 to 12 to 18 to 14. I mean, it's fine. Weaver's wall duration 5 seconds, 4 seconds. This also, like, there's a lot of instances where Talia casts the wall and then lets the wall down, which is fine. And there's also just a lot of seconds where, I mean, I think it's very rare that the wall trap actually does something. So this I wouldn't worry too much about, and then likewise this I would not worry too much about. I think that these nerfs are fine. Thresh, Q cooldown decreased at all ranks. Magic damage increased at all ranks. So they're actually finally giving Thresh some buffs. So the cooldown on his Q, okay.
1 second.
Getting 1 second off his Q, which I think is a joke because
I don't think it does much.
This 1 second off Q.
20 more damage.
This actually only happens in extended mid-game fights. That is the only time where this 1 second actually will matter. And yes, you will cast it again in a lot of instances. The magic damage 60 to 240 to 100. Oh no, sorry, 80 to 100. Okay. So
it's 20 damage in one second. I I feel like it doesn't
80
do
to
anything.
240 to 100 to 260. So he's getting 20 extra damage on it, but again, it's very akin to Leona that the reasons that you're picking Thresh are not there for the damage and everything else. So Thresh has been, you know, getting some attention, and I think that it is really good, especially because he was truly the king of support once upon a time, but obviously he's been outshined by cats. And I think that, you know, I mean, that's fine. Cats and unicorns and, you know, pop star singers. I mean, I think that all of those things are just perfectly acceptable to outshine the Shadow Isles, you know, Death Warden. Zed, E, energy cost decrease, W, living shadow spell, mimic
Oh boy,
range,
do I love it when I
2000
queue
to
up
what?
and
Shadow spell.
I get
Huh?
my support name is like Her
limit.
Kitty or some shit
Energy
playing
intended
Yumi.
to
It's so fun.
give champions spikes of power and fall off with it. Given the current state of the game, more extended friend champions that use energy to race around. What? No limit on W. That's obviously, I mean, it's nice. This actually does allow you to get away with some things that you would not have been able to before. I think that's fine.
Watch this.
Shadow slash energy cost is going to go down by 10. This actually matters a lot more in the earlier stages for Zed's laning phase because
I do have it enabled so subs can watch my past VODs. It's just there's like a bug or something with Twitch right now where your VODs are like getting owned. I'm working on it though. I tried to like my first of all, my VODs are for some reason automatically set to unpublish, which means they're still there, but like nobody can see them but me. But I don't want that. I want them to be like, I want subs to be able to watch them. So then I have to like make them public each time. But then it just like resets again. I don't know why that is.
unlike Shen, it's not like if you miss it feels bad. Shen
It's like a weird
totally
Twitch
different
thing.
playstyle. Actually having access to 10 extra
No
energy-
limit on his W range? Oh my god. What the fuck? That's crazy. That's actually crazy. No, that's actually insane. What? Why? Back in my day, he used to have like a 1,000 mimic range. It was crazy when they increased it to 2,000. Remember?
This
Now it's
does
like
matter because
even-
if Zed throws like 4 or 5 E's, in a
Even
laning
more
phase,
insane.
now suddenly he gets 1 free E, or just has other energy to play around with. So this is actually a really big deal.
What does it mean? There's no limit on his W range. Most of the time, Zed has to like be in a certain range to go back to his W. Now he doesn't need to be in range. Like, it doesn't matter at all anymore. There's no like skill expression when it comes to knowing your W range. They're just completely removing that.
On his E, is it going to make Zed come back into competitive? No, I wouldn't say so. Not in the current state of things, and so it just feels bad. He's much like some other champions, just a poor byproduct of the current meta environment.
Yeah, free back in lane. That's not how it works.
Blunderer. Excellent. Now that the dust has settled from Divine Blunderer changes on 12-13, it's still performing quite a bit stronger than we'd like it to. We're opting to decrease the amount of healing the item provides to bring it in more in line with other mythic options. Great, yeah. 65% to 55% of pre-mitigation, plus 4.8 to 2.4 range, maximum health, plus 100% base AD. Cool. Doesn't matter in most cases. This is very akin to
Isn't this,
the
like,
Gwen change, where it
still
just
good?
seems like Riot is almost it really does seem like Riot's out of touch with who would build this item in what situations
Yes.
and what that means for the
Yes,
enemy's
true.
ability to resist or how they would itemize, etc. It's very
Yep.
akin to the Gwen thing. It just doesn't feel like it's doing anything. 10% of pre-mitigation damage heal. If a champion is building Divine Sunder to beat the opponent by sustaining through them, the champion already beats the opponent by sustaining through them, and 10% of pre-mitigation damage going away doesn't do anything.
True.
Doesn't change the pattern. Doesn't
This
change
is
the
how
sequence.
Sundra Cat
It's just
works.
not enough when you consider who's going to build it against who and what that already means for the dynamic of the matchup. Which, interestingly enough, was one of my main arguments about Hullbreaker once upon a time. But, you know, that's whatever. Scimitar, okay. So magic resistance up by 10. Quicksilver active duration up by 0.5. Scimitar hasn't been appealing recently. Neutral is an important itemization. This is fine. I mean, getting extra 10 MR just makes it feel a little bit like it feels less bad to build it, and it's a little bit more of an increase. It's such a luxury, not a luxury item, but like it's something that you're not rushing. You're always building it last. This is always going to be a 5th or 6th item. So at that point, what is 10 MR really doing for you? Is it really letting you survive an extra rotation or something against the one target, given that you probably only have one magic resistance item? And if you built that one magic resistance item it seems
More
weird.
MR. Yeah, AP champs are strong right now,
Silver
guys,
Dawn
for sure.
is
AP
also
champs
getting
are so
some buff.
good.
Now, this item is better
More
than
MR.
Scimitar
Woo!
because this item has more champion access than Scimitar does.
No, guys, for sure, every single game isn't 3 AD bruisers going Gore Drinker, Sunderer with fucking Maw, Death's Dance, one-shotting everyone while also not being able to get killed. But more MR on Scimitar will make it a little bit more of an incentive for people to build it, you know? It's gonna make AP champs less OP, right? Because they're so OP right now.
And so I think that like the 5 magic resistance increase on
go.
this is actually more valuable because of the champions that build it, whereas Scimitar and the champions that build this, it's going to be less valuable to get access to the 10 magic.
I feel like the AD characters that do magic damage in their kit actually do more magic damage than AP champs altogether. You know what I mean? I swear, bro. Like, fucking Yone's passive probably does more than Katarina in a full combo.
Resist, obviously,
or
that's
Kali.
very nice as well. First strike. Bonus true damage, 10% to 9%. And then Zon Clash Cup,